Thank you. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for having me here. I imagine you're all kind of quite tired now. You've been sat there for a really long time. And it's Saturday, and we're in Barcelona, so you probably want to go and party. So I'll keep this kind of quite brief. I wanted to answer a kind of impossible question in my talk today, which is, how can you make something out of nothing? Not just how can you make something, but how can you fundamentally change the world when you start off with nothing? My name is Ruth. I am a cultural producer, an activist, and I work in war zones across the world, and I make things out of nothing. I wanted to show you a formula that I created that I want to try and prove today. So it is technology plus art plus humans equals change. And I want to take you on a journey through the world, through some of the things that I've encountered. I hope you don't know about all of them already, and I can surprise you and inspire you. And I'm going to go through each one of these things and show you how combined we can change the world when we start off with a blank canvas and some brilliant people and some brilliant ideas. So I first of all want to take you through this idea about how art can change the world. I want to take you to my favorite city in the world first, to Medellin in Colombia. Medellin is a very, very beautiful city that's had quite a complicated history. But I think that some of the young people there, for me, are some of the most inspirational in the whole world. I want to start with a quote from Medellin, and the quote says, "If it wasn't for hip-hop, I would be dead. Hip-hop gave me another option in life, and for that, I will always be grateful." This is a quote from my friend MC Lupa, who is a hip-hop artist in the city of Medellin in Colombia. Some of you will know Colombia for its kind of troubled history. Colombia produces a hell of a lot of cocaine. And because of that, there are lots of drug gangs, paramilitaries, there is corruption, and Colombia has had a failed state. And all of these things have made Colombia a difficult place to be. Since 1987, over 40,000 young people, mostly young men, aged between 14 and 24, have been murdered. And if you're from Medellin, you will know this quote that says, "We were born to die in Medellin." That's what most people think when they think about living or growing up in the city. So you really only had one choice, and that was to be, if you're a young guy from like a poorer neighborhood, you had one choice, and that was to be in a gang. But young people wanted to change this for themselves, and inspired by Public Enemy, Chuck D, politicized hip-hop from the communities in New York, they decided to create a hip-hop movement in the city of Medellin. It's amazing. In Medellin now, there are 2,500 hip-hop artists in this one place. And hip-hop has transformed the city, giving people a different option. Hip-hop is an amazing tool to give young people an identity outside of being in a gang. It kind of provides all the same things: family, identity, an opportunity to express yourselves, but in a non-violent way. And hip-hop is so important in Medellin now that there are lots and lots and lots of hip-hop schools where young people can go to learn to do this crazy, like breakdancing, spinning on their heads, can learn to rap and can learn street art in these school environments outside of traditional education. For me, I've witnessed it, I've been there, I've seen this. The hip-hop is powerful. People are talking about things that really matter to them. And this has transformed the city, along with a few other things, into a much, much safer place. And I want to show you a little clip. This is some hip-hop from El Laberinto from the city of Medellin.
Años 90, lo recuerdo muy bien, aún estaba muy chico yo, e inexperto también, me dejé seducir por un ritmo en el colegio donde estudié, al principio no era importante y luego al estudio renuncié.
Okay, I'm going to move it on because I know we've not got lots of time. But for me, that's a really good example of how hip-hop, which is essentially a vocal and a beat, can change a whole community. That's quite crazy, right? The next thing I want to talk about is technology, the role of technology in the transformation of communities and opportunities for people. And I know that not everybody in the world is connected, but I want to take you to the Egyptian revolution. So I was there just after the first revolution and just before the second revolution in Egypt. And again, I want to start this section with a quote, which is from my friend Rami El-Fast, who's a sculptor. He makes sculptures out of burnt-out car parts from Tahrir Square and makes them into kind of sculptures of weapons. And he says, without the internet, our revolution would not have been possible. And this is something that I discovered when I was there, the importance of the internet in what happened in Egypt. And I just wanted to run through why I think the internet is really important. I think that in a big place with a complex political situation, people are often quite scared about going out and protesting, especially if they feel like maybe they're on their own. What the internet is really brilliant at is you can be anonymous on the internet. So lots of people started groups on Facebook and so on, talking about the issues that they were facing in Egypt. And people could participate in these discussions and debates anonymously. And what this does is it gives confidence to people that there are other people out there who think the same as you. So the internet was a great place to bring all these people together and then to organize action, to say, okay, if we all believe in this, if we all think this way, let's go out on the streets and let's talk about this in a more public and physical platform. And of course, the internet is a great way to organize people in this way. But the internet is also a brilliant way to tell the story of what's happening on the streets to the rest of the world. And when we talk about making something out of nothing, the idea of people not having to go through the BBC or through Sky News, young people now can be journalists and can expose their own stories to the rest of the world through the internet. And this, for me, I've seen this in Brazil and I've seen this in Egypt, is such a hugely powerful tool for young people. Finally, in these three things, I want to talk about the role of humans. I think humans are hugely powerful. You don't have to have any money. You don't have to have any resources. I believe in fire. I believe in if you want to make something happen, you can. For this, I want to give a quote from the organization that I'm going to talk about now. This organization is based in Brazil, and I think this organization is the most important organization of our time. They say, we just push and push things forward with our fire. And this is Felipe Altenfelder from the organization called Fora do Eixo, based in Brazil. Fora do Eixo is this incredible organization that everyone should check out because they're huge. They operate right across Brazil, and they kind of operate the entire independent cultural system across Brazil. And in order for me to explain this to you and how humans can work together in an entirely different way, I'm going to have to give you a small lesson in economics, which is really hard for me to do because I'm not an economist. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about the history of this organization. Okay, so this is a map of Brazil. The yellow pin is a city called Cuiabá, located in central Brazil. A few of my friends there were at university about 6-7 years ago. And they were at university in the city of Cuiabá, 4 students. And they were getting really frustrated because there was no music activity happening in their city. So their city is here, okay? And if you're a band in Brazil, you would play in these places here. This is Rio and Sao Paulo. This is what they call the axis, the musical axis. And what they wanted to do is they wanted to make music happen in Cuiabá. So what they decided to do, and bear with me with this, is they decided to create a recording studio and rehearsal space in the city of Cuiabá to kickstart some kind of music activity there. And so they opened this great space, and bands would come in and record. But what they noticed very quickly is that bands don't have a lot of money. So they were charging money, but the bands couldn't really afford to come in and use the studio. So what they decided to do, say the music studio costs $100 a day, they decided to charge a really reduced rate, like $50. But what they very cleverly did is they wrote down all the $50 that were owed to them by the bands. They kept it in this book, and they had all of this money that was owed. But what they realized really quickly is that the bands were not going to be able to pay them back in money. So what they said to the bands is, tell you what, you can build websites. Why don't you create a website for our organization? you can run a bar in this venue. You can do this, you can do this. So they got people to pay them back by doing different things, like a skills exchange, okay? So what this meant in the city is that the kind of musical scene started to develop. Bands were performing and playing in the city. And it was kind of becoming quite vibrant. And it was all based on this kind of exchange economy. Then they realized that what they needed to do was bring some actual money into the system so that they could make lights happen, make electricity happen, and so on. So they started to put on concerts where people from the public would come in and watch the bands. Audience members were paying money, so real money was then brought into this system. The music scene started to really, really explode in Cuiabá. It was going crazy. There were bands playing every night of the week, and this was really exciting. Then a local restaurant saw that what was happening in the city, saw this really vibrant music scene, and they said, we want to connect with these people. So they spoke to Fora do Eixo, and they said, we want to sponsor your music nights. And Fora do Eixo said, no, no, no. You can give us half of the money that you were going to give us for the sponsorship, but let all of our bands eat in your restaurants for free. So what they then did is create this exchange system within Cuiabá where there was lots of culture being produced and lots of people doing things for each other. They then got into their car and they drove to the next city and they set this up in the next city and the next city and the next city. Okay, so what does this look like today? Well, Fora do Eixo has 2,000 people who work in the organization across 200 cities in Brazil using this system of exchange economy. They live in houses together and they work together in these houses. They eat together, they work together, they produce music together, produce festivals together. They produce 600 festivals every year and they mobilize tens of thousands of artists between these festivals across Brazil. They have their own bank, they have their own currency, and they generate millions and millions of dollars every year for the independent music infrastructure there. And for me, this is an example of just a mind-blowing organization. A group of people who look like this. They're all like 20 years old. You know, this is kind of incredible. And they've made this phenomenal system across Brazil. And if you research more about them, they have a citizen journalism platform called Media Ninja with something like 750,000 likes on Facebook. They have great political power in their organization as well. This clip that I'm going to show you now is I was going home from Brazil and I was going to the airport and my friend Felipe took me to this place and he said in 4 days we're going to make a concert in this square. And I'm just going to turn it down slightly. And he said, we haven't got any money, we haven't asked anybody permission, we're going to have the biggest artists playing in Brazil, and we're going to have tens of thousands of people there to see it. And as you watch this clip, you will see more and more people come in, and it's a huge, huge success. And for me, this really shows the power of what you can happen when you work together. This is something that underpins all of the work that we do with my organization. I have this tattooed on my back in Spanish, Hagámoslo juntos. The idea of do it together and how powerful that is. Okay. So just to finish, I haven't really spoken about what I do, so I'll just tell you really quickly. I started out as a musician, then I started a record label, working with lots of other bands in my city of Manchester in the UK. Then I started something called Unconvention, which was a platform that brought people together at the independent level of the music industry to talk about the future of music when digital came along and everyone said the music industry is dead, and we sort of thought, no, this is an amazing time for music. With Unconvention, we took it to 25 cities across the world. We've made 75 editions of the program. But in terms of this talk, which is about doing things from nothing, and we did all of that with very little resource. I have an organization called In Place of War. We work in war zones, and we try to empower people through education, through the creative industries. We work with creativity in sites of conflict. We're trying to make, well, we're going to make 3 spaces like this, inspired by Tuna El Fuerte in Venezuela, cultural parks made out of converted shipping containers, in 3 of the most challenging contexts in the world. In Eastern Congo, in Bukavu, in Makokoba, the oldest township in Zimbabwe, and in Hosina, the biggest favela in Rio. And we're doing this simply with a blank canvas. We are collecting music, studio, TV, and film equipment. We've collected £250,000 worth in 8 months. And we're using this as a catalyst to create spaces on the ground in these places. And we have a creative entrepreneurial program that we've created with the University of Manchester to deliver in these places. I want to finish with a quote. This is a guy called Ewok from South Africa. And he says, "Can poetry change the world? Well, poetry can change a people, and people can change the world." And I think that's very true. If we go back to the formula that we started off with, so I think to summarize, technology can connect people. It can connect people right across the world. Art can make you see things in a different way, and creativity for me is as important as water and electricity and all of those things. Without creativity, what's the point? And human beings are massively powerful, especially when people work together. So I think all of these things can make change in the world, and I think that we just need to recognize that. Gracias. Thank you.